All right. Thanks for being here for the info night. So, I'll start with a little bit about my journey in history, just so you have an idea of where this is all coming from. So, it's not just random. When I was young, I had a lot of both mental, emotional, and physical health issues from things that were going on in my childhood. And, you could say I also came in with a lot of questions early on. I was a very spacey kid, looking for a sense of purpose, looking for a sense of understanding. Reality as it wasn't really giving me the answers that I was seeking for. And I had pretty debilitating stomach pain to where I'd go to the hospital, several times per year for it and be curled up on the bathroom floor many, many more times other than that, as well as had some pretty debilitating inflammation and pain. Really, even in my earliest teenage years, it was pretty full on and intense, and had a lot of edema and swelling in the head, had what they later found to be mast cell activation syndrome symptoms, which is really just, a word for a bunch of different symptoms that they decided was, okay, we're going to call it this. But that was all really early on and pretty debilitating in my life, as was my need for answers, as was my rejection of reality. I knew that there was more than what was on the surface, more than what I could just see. And so when I was 14, I started studying Reiki and became a Reiki master teacher within a couple of years of doing that, and would go to weekly practices and give people healings. And I did some shamanic practices, studied with some Indian gurus. And then when I was about 16, went and lived with a 32nd degree Freemason who was also very well taught in all sorts of different spiritual traditions, is a martial arts Hall of Famer, and many other skills that he had. I was immersed in his energy, daily, and we would do private mentorship where he would teach me things anywhere from reading the tarot all the way towards um, him asking me questions. Oh, is the audio bad? Can you guys hear me okay? Sounds good to everyone else? Okay. Might need to turn up the volume then. Or switch devices. I don't know. Sometimes it gets wonky. But anyway, we would have some really esoteric and profound experiences in that. And then I went on to a spiritual mystery school called a psychic school. And same thing. I was there 2 to 4 days a week and ended up being mentored by the person who was running it, and started teaching classes, running practice spaces, and literally doing hundreds of sessions a year as part of my practice and training. And so I was pretty well depth in working with people, the personal growth industry, the spiritual realm, was going to enlightenment intensives, all the things that were somehow available to me at a really young age. And they were miraculous and amazing. And I temporarily healed a lot of those elements, a lot of those mental, emotional, and physical things that were going on. But then life does life and threw me a bunch of, drama and trauma, if you will, that sort of stirred it all up again. And I was starting to decline in my health and well-being. And 2020 was actually a pretty fun year for me. But in the years following after that is when things really hit, which I found to be true for a lot of people. And my health got really bad after that, to where I could only leave bed for 4 hours a day. Severely depressed. My hormones were shut down so bad I had to be on estrogen blockers, had very little energy. I won't go into the full details, but it got so bad that I was on a feeding tube enzyme diet at one point because my body rejected all other foods. I was really decaying. I'm 6'5" and I was 135 pounds at one point. Really not an okay weight to be at. And all the spirituality in the world, it was really helping, but it didn't quite click. I wasn't quite able to get to the physical symptoms as well. And so I advanced my psychic practice and my spiritual knowledge into the realm of biology. and I started to get an understanding of how the body actually works and what turns on biological programs that create symptoms through the lens of German New Medicine, which is, something that we would get into in this course, but it gives you that biological understanding and tie-in that allows all the spiritual work, mindset work, energy work, everything else to actually work and get your results in the body. And so I rapidly started to recover and heal, put on 20, 25 pounds of muscle mass within a few months and was able to eat foods again. Now you'll see me filming videos of me eating McDonald's just to, gloat in my recovery and joy of being able to eat everything after, nearly 5 years of being on a very restricted diet. And so this certification program is an accumulation of all of the most useful things that I've learned in a 12, 15-year long journey of basically trying everything, of jumping into all these various spiritual realms, trying all these different ways to heal, to get better, and finding what actually worked, what actually could move the needle, actually get results, whether it's symptoms, whether it's breaking free from painful patterns, whether it's enhancing your relationship, whether it's tapping into your purpose and actually being able to live a life that's aligned with purpose. All of those things was finally unlocked for me within the last couple years, but especially the last year and a half, is when I really was able to find what's at the source of all suffering and symptoms in people, and how to resolve it. And it's actually fairly simple, which doesn't make it easy. It's a very difficult thing to do in a lot of ways, but there is a simple process that gets you guaranteed results for yourself and for your clients. And so this certification, it's really outlining all of that. And so let me just screen share here. Sometimes I get excited and just want to say everything, but I'll take it a little more step by step. Um, where's the present button? Here it is. The Zoom pop-ups kind of gets in the way. Let's see if I can move that. Boop. Hopefully that's a good spot for it. Um, so here we are, Info Night. And so the sort of premise of how this certification works is, for one, we want to learn how to tap into our intuition. We want to learn how to tap into our own spiritual gifts. We don't just want this to be something where you're following a script and doing it the same way everybody else does. And the thing that I've come to learn is our bodies are designed to heal themselves. They're designed to find a solution. And when you're connected to your intuition is always going to naturally lead you towards what you need for resolution. You see that there's, 100 different people using 100 different techniques, all promising that it's the way out there online, right? And to some extent, that's a hindrance because you don't know what to believe. But to some extent, there's some validity in it because the number of psyches that there are in the world is the number of different solutions that a person could potentially need or utilize in order to get healing and get awakening. Everybody's at a different spot in their journey and needs something a little bit unique to really crack the code for them to get them there. And so when we tap into our intuition first, we get to really connect with the other soul that we're working with. And that intuition is going to lead us to what is the appropriate solution for them. I had three different couples that I'm doing sessions for that all came to me with basically the same problem this last week. And all three of those sessions were totally different. They were totally unique in how we worked on it, what the sort of insight and answers were, and how they moved forward in those relationships. So while there's a systematic approach as to how you can get anyone results, when you connect to your intuition, it's really personalized. It's really unique to them. You really understand the other person, the spirit you're working with, and their psyche. And that might sound really mystical and far out, and like, no way are we going to be able to do that in a 4 month span. But a lot of people in this room are proof of that. There's some people here in this group that have gone through the intuitive side of this training and are doing that right now, you know? And I've guided literally hundreds of people through that same process too. And many of them are using their intuition as a profession out in the world. And so it's actually your nature, it's your natural gift to access intuition. We just have to retrain the muscle and remove what's in the way of that. And then we're going to learn both the language of spirit and the body. So that's where the GNM biological teachings come in to assist us. We can know what the body's trying to say as well as what the spirit's trying to say. And when you can connect the two worlds, you can see the full picture. That's when you get amazing, consistent, guaranteed results. Oh, I knew it was going to end up in the way. I'll move the little zoom thingy. Can I make it smaller? Okay, there we go. Yeah, and so we're going to learn something that might seem like fundamentals. We're going to learn some energy work meditation, but the fundamentals are oftentimes where the magic is. And it's a type of meditation that's going to be nervous system regulation work as well. And that's a helpful tool. It isn't a solution in and of itself. And that's why people that only offer nervous system regulation fall short because they don't actually ever get to the root of things. And so we're going to learn some meditation, energy work stuff. And then we're going to learn the foundations of GNM. We're going to learn far more than just the foundations of how to give an intuitive reading, and far more than the fundamentals of how to do somatic inquiry. We're going to really practice that over and over again within the group and see it done as well to gain a level of mastery there. And we're going to have a really clear format as to how to do this. It's not just a airy fairy, like tap into your intuition and just see what comes to you and let something land. It's not one of those ungrounded practices. And it's not just basic somatic work where you're like, okay, and now take a deep breath and feel your feet on the ground and, try to release that. No, it's really in depth and there's a structure to it. So you know exactly what you're doing, you know exactly how you're getting your answers, you know exactly how you're working with somebody in order to get these amazing results. Um, you'll also learn a bit of the ethics of working with somebody, how to keep it client centered and focused, how you can keep it a safe and respectful space. And that's valuable both for their results, but also you being able to maintain your own energy, uh, insanity, and honestly, it helps you to bring in just better clients too. So there's certain ethical principles in how to structure giving sessions that comes into it as well. And I do just want to say this course in and of itself is a course for your own healing and transformation. When I was running psychic schools, every single person took the practitioner level. Oh, you guys can't see my air quotes, can you? But the practitioner level route, right? Where they all learned how to do readings to give to each other, even though 90% of them had no intention of ever doing it as a profession. It just becomes your fastest path towards your own healing and development because you're getting to see patterns play out over and over again in different people. Most of what I've learned is just through having done literally thousands of sessions. And so I can see the human condition with a ton of clarity. It doesn't take much for me to know what's at the root of somebody's problem because I've seen it over and over again. And so whether you want to use this as a profession for other people, it's your life path and purpose, or whether it's just for your own healing, this is the best way to get there. When you're receiving sessions, it's really helpful and profound. But when you're in the work a little bit longer, you get the underlying principles that go with it. You understand how and why it works. your biology follows your belief and it becomes much more effective, right? And then you add on top of that being able to trade with other people. So now you're receiving from other people and you're giving to other people within this course. And so that just becomes really clear. You basically get years of coaching experience, years of reading experience in a condensed amount of time. I always saw that the students that showed up to the practice spaces the most were the ones that had the most success in their own healing, their own awakening, and just in life in general, right? And so this course, it has more opportunity for practice than any other course you'll find on the internet. I can pretty much guarantee that because we have like 3 days a week, 3 weeks out of the month opportunities to practice, as well as some in-class time. So it's the most practical, real-time experience you'll ever get out of a course. Most courses are just here, watch this thing, good luck to you. I made my money, see ya. This isn't that. We go over all the core teachings in the first 4 months, but then we have continued education ongoing in continued practice spaces for a whole year. So for the price of this program, it's insane that you get a whole year's worth of value out of it. But anyway, back to my fun slideshow here that you're all dying to see. Uh, we will go over the GNM basics, but honestly, it's more than the basics. We'll go over everything that's essential for you to actually use German New Medicine in your life and with clients. You don't have to know everything and be an expert. That takes years to fully get, but there's a certain amount of information that you need in order to actually apply it and use it. And then as you use it with clients and in your life and you see the patterns, you become an expert in a much more real, tangible way than just, course learning it for years on end. So it goes beyond the basics. Um, and if you have no idea what GNM is or why this is helpful, check out my YouTube. I have a pretty good video that breaks it down. But essentially, this is the piece that honestly, this is better um, training than what doctors get, in my opinion. This actually shows you the root cause of symptoms and behavioral patterns and how to actually resolve it, what to actually do with it. You know, Sometimes people they get a little ungrounded in their work that they do with others to where they might have really great epiphanies or insights, but there's not a real clear path as to how to actually integrate it and use it. And the type of coaching and intuitive work that you'll learn in this, you're not telling somebody what to do. You're giving them insight, helping them have their own insight, and helping them to find their own answer as to how to move forward, but with this added understanding of biology and how the subconscious mind actually works, there's sometimes really clear solutions for them as to what they need to do. When I was working with my colitis and healing it, I was trying all the things to heal it, but I had to take a practical step. When I left my job that I was unhappy with, it allowed for all that insight and awareness and healing work to actually land to where it turned off my colitis. And then later on, I started to have some IBD symptoms coming back, some more gut stuff, and started to do the internal work, got to the core of it as far as the false belief goes. But then there was a practical step that wasn't happening in my life that allowed it all to integrate. And if you don't understand this part of it, you wouldn't know how to coach somebody in that direction. You wouldn't know what needs to move forward in their life to actually create these results. Because there's so many promises and pitfalls and traps on the path of healing. And we're going to go over so many of those in this certification. But one of them is that people can sometimes become hyper fixated on the problem, or they can be obsessed with there being something wrong and let me heal, 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 fix, 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 to where it becomes that in and of itself becomes an identity. And they're not able to actually live in a way that allows something to complete, to resolve, allows them to have a totally new world. And so at some point, you have to go beyond that obsessed healer, that obsessed, you know, let me fix myself. There's various versions of how that shows up. And so when you understand the G&M side of it, you get a sense of what that looks like. I did healing work for a decade but I was very like isolated from the world. A lot of aspects of my life weren't balanced and good. Whereas once I integrated this, I now, for the most part, I still like to work a little too much, but I otherwise have a pretty balanced life. And I understand that a big part of the healing and awakening is actually just being able to live, being able to be happy, being able to be on the other side of it and giving it enough time to play out and finish. So there's some really key things like that that I'll nerd out with you guys in this certification. You'll also understand if somebody has a symptom, it shows you exactly what their core belief is, what their false belief is that's going on with them. So even if you have no interest in helping people with physical healing, they'll consciously tell you a story of what they believe is going on with them, but their body will never lie. The body is a manifestation of the subconscious. And so I know what people are actually living with, what's unresolved within them, no matter how well they can spiritually bypass or put on a happy face, try to positive affirmation their way through it, their symptoms will always give them away. Even if it's only slight sensations within a session, if somebody yawns, if somebody sneezes, if somebody feels a sensation in their arm, I know exactly what's going on in their psyche that's unresolved, that's still there. So your intuitive skills that you learn in this, you're able to read and see energy. You'll be able to know what their past lives are, what their energetic field looks like, what the energy dynamics of their relationships are. You'll get all that beautiful information from spirit in the form of images, right? We're not using tarot decks or runes or anything like that. You just close your eyes and it's a clairvoyant style of reading. And then on the other side, you'll know exactly how to read their body, their symptoms, everything that's expressing in that way. And that allows you to fast track your way to what the root of their problem is and get them a solution. And when you can quickly and effectively get somebody a solution, you have clients for life. The biggest problem in my business right now is I have 10 people on my waiting list, but 50% of the people that I'm already working with in 3 to 6 months packages, they just want to renew. They're like, I got such good results. I just want to keep going. And so I'm like, I don't have any more hours to give. I don't have any more times I can open up. I got to graduate people on. And so that's why I'm really incentivized to teach other people because I need you guys to be able to do this work with everybody that's compiling in my waiting list and to be able to learn it for yourself too, right? Um, so this just talks a little bit about how that process works. I won't get into it too much here. We'll play the Zoom bar game. Um, so biological understanding, that's what I explained. You learn how to do intuitive reading to really quicken the process and keep it in alignment with spirit. You'll learn integrated somatic inquiry, which is a process of allowing somebody to gain their own answers and stay in connection to their own body so they can actually release it. It doesn't always release if you just do it at the level of awareness or the level of the mind. It can. Sometimes you release it from the mind and the body follows, but it's really helpful. Your conscious mind isn't the thing that's holding on to these pains, right? Your conscious mind isn't the part that's holding on to the program. It's your subconscious and unconscious mind. And so when you tap in somatically, you guys are going to learn how to be connected to your intuition, but your clients might not. They're not going to be able to let go of their conscious mind and their thinking. That's all they know for the most part. So when you can guide them somatically, you allow them to access their intuition, to access their subconscious and unconscious minds without having any skills, without having any previous knowledge. And so then you can release the program, you can release the blockage, you can whatever's at the root through that methodology. So the way that I like to work with people is I like to do an initial reading to give them the overview and the insight, and then I like to do integrated somatic inquiry with them to actually release and clear the program and blockage. Sometimes I'll do both in the same session if somebody's really stuck. I'll do some reading first, and then I'll do some inquiry on what we just read. So there's a couple ways to do it, and I'll outline that and show you what I've seen is most successful, and you'll get a sense of which clients to do which one with. But that's how you really get to identity level distortions, which is the root cause of all suffering. all the thought patterns, emotional patterns, symptoms, they all follow identity distortions. And I'm not going to get into what that is because it's in some of my other videos and we'll get into it into the course, but that's what's really revealed through that inquiry process. And then it leads them on to healing. Who is this for? Coaches, therapists, intuitive service providers, pretty much anyone that wants to heal, become more free. Honestly, I think everybody needs an understanding of their biology and how things actually work. That alone honestly makes this course worth it. Um, it is catered to people who want to be certified. You do get two certifications, which I am a reverend minister of a church, and so I can give certifications under that guise, if you will. But really, I'm one of the torch holders for the BPI lineage, which is a spiritual lineage that dates back to the 70s and has had hundreds of thousands of people that have gone through it. And you could say it passed from the founder to a couple key people to me. And so, I'm very well known and I think respected in that community. And so a certification that has my name on it for you means something. There's a lot of people that know what the BPI modality and field is. If you pick up a book on intuition or intuitive development, it's probably written by somebody who's come out of that lineage, right? Uh, and then the integrated somatic inquiry certification is also something that I've been trained and approved to deliver to you. So it will be there. And there will be some emphasis on how to do this with clients, how to do this as a path of purpose. But again, even if you never use it with a single client, it'll be profound. I introduced this work to my family and they've been doing it. And my little sister cleared her allergies, which were so severe she had to get monthly shots for. My mom has cleared her insomnia, and she would say her addiction to sugar and coffee. My family's been getting into it. And just if you use it for that, like your friends, your family, yourself, it'll be worth it. Let's see what else I put in here. There's live sessions, which is live classes, which are weekly. They'll be on Thursday nights at about 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we have some amazing instructors that are going to join me to co teach that. And so there will be 2 to 3 classes a month that are on the intuitive side, and there will be 1 to 2 classes a month that are on the inquiry German New Medicine side. And then there will also be an additional once a month group coaching space where I will work with you guys live one-on-one in a group setting so you can see how it works there. And I call that group coaching, but it's really going to be more of a mastermind format. So I'll work with at least 2 people each time, and then I'll also mastermind it for you. So we can basically talk and go into anything that's course related that you're learning, anything you want to know. So there's a ton of class opportunity. You don't have to make all of them. There'll be recordings, so if you have to miss a few, that's no big deal. Once we start to get into the practices, that's where you really want to make sure to be there live because we will have practice opportunities both in class and then several times a week. You don't have to make all of them, of course. Ideally, you make, well, I'll show you how many to make here in a bit. And some of those are like the Saturday class is in the morning, and one of the Sunday practices is in the morning. So people who are in Australia or other time zones, you could at the very least not wake up at 4 a.m. for those. Can't help you on the other ones, unfortunately, yet. But yeah, there is some time zone help that we do there. And if I get enough people in far off time zones, I can add an extra Saturday too to make that work. You'll get a lot of ongoing support and feedback through the whole process as well, to a higher level than what I've done in the past. You'll understand how to do conflict mapping, somatic healing, how to keep clear and ethical boundaries, which again is really going to help you, whether that's in life or with clients. So this just kind of breaks that down. Class, coaching. We're going to have a break because this does start in December. I'll show you that in a second. But we'll have a break for the holidays because I'm not that crazy. I was, but then one of our teacher assistants reminded me that some people aren't obsessed to the point where they want to skip holidays. Anyway, like I said, it's 4 months of the core teaching, but it's a year-long support, and I will continue to give as advanced of teachings as you need, and there's an opportunity to go into an advanced program if you want to after that as well. But the year long is included within this certification program, which is also awarded at the end. Um, what else did I put in here? There will be community access as well. We'll either use Slack or Telegram, so you can constantly, not constantly, but you can ask questions to the teachers. Me or them will respond. You'll be able to share and connect with other participants. You really build some amazing friendships and connections in part of these groups. Most of my lifelong and best friends all came out of these types of courses, and some of my favorite connections that I've made have been through these kind of containers too. I was even just at a wedding that I was invited to based off of people I knew through these kind of containers. It just keeps going. So there is a fun community aspect to this as well as real feedback from us, which isn't something that you normally get. You're not doctors, you're not giving diagnosis. We really focus on being client led in a way that empowers them. There's no guruing. You're not going to be the one that has all their answers. We don't play any of those games. It's really got to be empowering for them and empowering for you without a dependency. You get so many more clients and so many better clients with that setup, believe it or not. I have way more clients today than back in the day when I was the psychic with the crystal ball that had all of your answers. The quality of clients and the consistency is through the roof in comparison to trying to be that, right? We'll get to the ask me anything and the next steps, but I want to just see if I can show you guys one more thing. If if the zoom bar will move, we'll see. There we go. So the certification requirements is to finish the recorded content, to attend at least 10 classes live, to submit 2 practice sessions. So this would be you uh, giving a session of both types that you're being certified in that I will review for you and give you feedback on, which could be something that we do live or it can be something that I do in private. We could work either way with that, but I do want to actually watch your recording and give you feedback. That's a pretty rare bonus that you don't normally get in a course. You're also going to be required to complete 22 practice sessions, which might sound like a lot, but you have many months to get that done. I think I had to do 100 for my certification. So I'm being, a little slack with that. And that'll be at least 10 reading practices and at least 10 somatic inquiry practices, plus 2 root cause clarity calls, which I'll show you what that is. Um, and then you'll get your certification. The dates, just real quick. Here we are, October 15th. Oh, this isn't actually updated. Here, let me see if I can refresh. Maybe it will be. There we go. Ah, look at that. Magic. This is the right date. So we'll start Thursday, December 4th and 9th, and then we'll have that group coaching call. And then we will take off 2 weeks for the holidays, and then we will resume in January. So we get a head start on setting you up for a really positive way to enter into the new year. And in uh, this isn't accurate as to what that class is going to be actually, but it gives you a general idea of what the classes are. A couple of these I'm going to have to switch up, but you know, I'll make that all available to everyone once they sign up as well, what those classes really um, look like. But like I said, there's a couple on the intuitive side and a couple on the inquiry and G&M side. Um, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to show you guys on here. Um, yeah, there is some other bonuses that come with it too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So that is my pitch. I'd love to open it up to any Q&A. Don't be shy. What questions do you have? Or if you even just want to share where you're at in your journey in short and what it is that you're trying to move into. I'm happy to hear that too if there's not questions.
I have a quick question. Oh, Brandon.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
The dates you say, I thought it was originally the first and third Wednesday. Are the Thursdays set? And how
No.
long would the class be?
Classes are about 2 hours, but they are essentially Thursday nights throughout the whole month, minus holiday time. Yeah. The 2 Wednesdays a month was overly ambitious for how much I could fit in. There's so much that goes into this, so it's got to be weekly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Eric?
I'm curious around the sorry, I just switched off of Bluetooth. Um, Allergies. Like what's the allergy methods you use? Because I suffer from cats and dogs and seasonal and everything, and I've cut out dairy and gluten. And like I've done allergy shots, 2 rounds of them, and nothing really seems to be beneficial unless like I keep myself unstressed and my environment's like super sterile and my diet's really clean. Like,
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a lot of work, right? Um,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So allergies is a very broad topic, right? And I had mast cell activation syndrome, which you could say is an allergy to histamines. I had the HLA gene and mold toxicity, so you could say allergic to mold, tons of food allergies. And to make it kind of simple, allergies are not the cause of the symptom. It's not like cat dander is getting into your nose and then causing you to have a runny nose or brain fog, right? Otherwise, everybody that's around cats would have that. You don't just have a quote unquote weak immune system or fragile like the medical system would like you to believe. What actually happens is you have something called DHS, a core conflict shock, a moment in your life that catches you off guard, it's isolated and it's unexpected, significant to you, right?
Sorry,
It's not
I had the audio drop when you said like cat mold. That's not the cause, and then it
okay.
just went silent for like a minute.
Yeah, yeah. You might have to listen to it back because I don't want to make everyone else suffer
Sure,
through
sure.
me saying the same thing twice. But essentially, that's not the thing that's causing you symptoms. What's causing you symptoms is you had an event. It wasn't necessarily a psychological trauma, although it could have aspects of that, but it was biologically alarming to your system. So something that caught you off guard, it was unexpected and somewhat significant. A lot of these happen in childhood because many things that are happening to you are unexpected. They're for the first time, right? And then later on in your life, you might have something that catalyzes that. It's sort of you could say, a reiteration of that biological trauma you had in early childhood. And so it
Mhm.
turns it back on and amplifies it. And so what happens is your psyche, your psyche is only receiving the information of what you're imagining to be true about your environment. It's not, yes, the senses are involved, but it's not how your conscious mind interprets your environment. And so when you have these conflict shocks, it takes a screenshot and it tends to register things that feel like foreign substances. And so it might register the cat dander as a foreign substance, or the mold as a foreign substance, or the perfume as a foreign substance. The less biological a substance is, the more likely your psyche is to register it as a threat. And
Mm.
so now when that dander or that allergen comes in, that acts as a subconscious reminder to the original event. And so your body starts to adapt to try to protect you and keep and get you out of harm's way, but it never fully completes, it never fully resolves. And so you just start to get that allergy. And then sometimes we form a belief around the allergy, more fear around it. We start to resist it even more, and it becomes more and more intense because now you're putting more energy into it being a threat, right? And so I have a really cool process that I've used to cure tons of people of their food intolerances, including myself. Um, and it works with all sorts of allergies. You know, if I can cure my mold allergy, even though I have the HLA gene, which is all a lie, and I'll explain that in the course too, you can definitely clear any of these allergies. Yeah. It's sometimes an easier one to work with. And there is some nervous system brain retraining work that's involved in that, uh,
Mm-hmm.
which we get into too. But yeah, there's a process to show your psyche that it's safe and to let go of that past event so that it doesn't adapt.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why people will have different symptoms uh, for the same thing, right? Like that's the thing that was the funniest to me about mast cell activation is people have different histamine responses to different foods. Like for example, I could eat aged cheese all day long and it didn't cause me any problems. There's a ton of histamines in aged cheese, right? But then other things like sauerkraut would cause a severe symptom. And when they medicate people with mast cell activation, the medication themselves become ineffective and they have to continuously switch the dose in 1/8 increments of a capsule because their psyche is now registering new things as threats all the time. They never actually fixed
Mm.
anything. They're just playing this crazy game to try to uh, eliminate some symptoms. And that's why with a lot of these allergies or autoimmune conditions, they say, oh, you can be in remission or you can make it less bad, but you can't ever truly resolve it. And that's not true. I won't get too deep into my sister's case, but there was things that she felt she couldn't communicate uh, that I wouldn't be responsive to, that she had to keep a secret because we have a 10-year age gap, and so she was kind of like my little baby sister, and she went through this process in a couple of sessions and then did something called reporting where she communicated with me and showed her body that it was safe to express herself, and then she was able to those allergies all went down. She wasn't able to go on hikes. She had to get the shots. She was afraid to go anywhere with her friends because it could act up, and she was just good the whole rest of the summer after doing it
Mm.
in just a couple sessions. Yeah,
That's cool.
it was pretty cool. Yeah. I think we had another question in the comments. Let's see. Would this touch on ADHD? I would be happy to touch on ADHD. I have specific things that I'm teaching throughout this, but I'm happy to cater it to your guys's um, needs as well. Some of the content, because there's the weekly classes, but there's actually 50 hours of pre-recorded content as well that comes in this. And part of that is content on every single symptom. I haven't made all of them yet because that's going to take me, 100 more hours, but when you tell me which one you want me to do a video on, I will add it to the course and or we can work on it in real time in that Saturday session as well. Like I can actually help you resolve it and everybody else gets to understand how the ADHD pattern works. So you all get to learn from each other's experience while having mirrored neurons and sharing a healing experience together, being in community and getting to learn more. So we can totally touch into that one. Yeah. Uh, ADHD was a big one that I had. I had that since I was a little kid. And then at one point, they decided that I also had bipolar, so they wouldn't give me ADD meds anymore. And so I was like, well, this isn't going to work. And I was working with somebody who knows this work as well. And I actually did 4 sessions that all targeted the exact same time frame and memory. Most people would think, oh, I've been there, done that. I already tried to process that, whatever, move past it. That isn't always the case. There's sometimes a very particular element of a memory, of an event. That's what's keeping it a conflict. So, on the fourth time I resolved it, I went through what they call a healing phase, which is where you get more symptoms immediately after. Felt like I was crazy for 3 days straight, and then it went away. And I never had bipolar disorder or ADHD sense, except for occasionally circumstantially. If my life is reflecting the same scene as that childhood, and I don't become aware of it and consciously remind myself of the resolution, then I can go back into it temporarily. So It's not always a perfect 100%, you never have to think about it again. There's a shift that happens at an identity level, and you could always go back into that old identity, you know? And life will tempt you at times. And so knowing how to spot it and pull yourself out of it is part of this practice, both for yourself and people you're guiding it through. Because I might occasionally have symptoms or have a certain thing that comes up, but I'm like, oh, cool, this is where I've fallen off track. I'm not living from the wholeness of self, but an undivided self, a protector part of me, whatever you want to call it. And so this is my opportunity to course correct. Thank God for this symptom. Thank God for this opportunity to come back to wholeness. So you don't fear it anymore. You're not fear of symptoms. You're not afraid that it's never going to resolve. You're appreciative of it because you know it's teaching you something greater. The lowest, grossest form, the symptom, gets to take you to the highest, most ascended place, the truth of who you really are, and being able to live that. So this is the most deeply profound spiritual certification that I run, and the most pragmatic, on the ground, integrated into the body one as well. Right. So you have a whole new experience of life. There's not the fear. After I got my mold diagnosis and then learned this stuff, I ended up having to stay in a rental that had visible mold in it. I was like, I don't care. I know that that's not what's really causing the symptoms. And if anything flares up, I know the path back to feeling good. And I was fine. Anyway, Aslan, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I love the way that you've put this course together. It sounds really complete and just going to take sort of people from start to finish and give them everything they need. I've got two questions. One specifically around the certification and how that is recognized, perhaps globally or within, I don't know, perhaps, associations or bodies where you might require or that might be seen as I guess, a key reference to being a professional and then charging money, not only from the client side, but if there is any regulatory bodies where that fits into it. And then just on the other side of that, how this course is different from the body of work that you already have out there. I'm, currently in the process of learning through, I think it's the year-long mentorship program. And so I'm sort of looking at the two going, well, if I end that one and start this one, am I going to be missing out on anything? This sounds more complete. But, I guess for the value in it, is that prior course going to, have captivated most of what's in this course? So if you can give me some sort of reference to your
Yeah.
prior work.
Yeah, for sure. Um,
Mm,
First, on the certification element of it, I had the opportunity to have an official, International Federation of Coaching certification and be able to give those to people, but I find it quite restrictive. There's certain rules and regulations that you have to stay within that I actually just don't like. And when I make six figures a year working with people, I've never once had a lawsuit, complaint, or any problem with it. I prefer to be able to have the freedom to work in a framework that I actually see working better than that one. Because if you have the official recognized nationally certification, which, by the way, they just decided that they were the governing body of that. It doesn't actually hold any legality either. It's like, okay, let me have another organization, HIPAA, scrutinize my work. If somebody sends in a recording where you don't ask a client a certain series of questions, which are totally basic beginner baby questions, that if a client's paying you a good amount of money, they're going to be like, what the heck, dude? Why are we going through this each time? They can take that away from you and punish you for it. And so to me, it's not worth doing. Being a registered minister allows me to do everything I want legally without any limitations. And so I can show you guys how to add that to this certification too. The recognition is more just from my recognition within the intuitive community as a whole, and people understanding that and the inquiry side. But otherwise, it is not, you know, any standing body that actually oversees that, as coaching has been for the most of its existence. Um, and even there's multiple bodies that certify coaches. One of them's going away. It's dissolving. And I think by the end of this year, next year. And so only one of them's actually going to remain anyway, and who knows for how long. So I've always just preferred to do it this way in all of the intuitives that have done readings in all of the schools that span all over the country and in other countries, have all done it under that same protection plan of being a registered minister. And so far so good. Yeah. And then to the second part of your question, this is a much more full body of work. This is the synapse of everything that I've learned in life and practiced with 2000 plus clients, and really honed in on the essentials and deliver it in a way that I believe to be most empowering. A lot of the purely just intuitive academy work is a bit outdated. It's from the 70s and 80s, and there's certain things that I refreshed and made it more applicable and understandable to today. It's still amazing. It's still great and works as a full body of work that you could use and run with. I just personally think this is better. I just get better results with it. It's more understandable to a broader range of people. My client base has opened up tremendously, from opening it up, and none of the German New Medicine biology based, the inquiry based stuff, none of that is in the just purely intuitive academy. That is all intuition, personal development through a spiritual lens. There is advanced stuff within that that's outside of this in the advanced intuitive training. But we will have a doorway into that as a live training after this anyway, after a couple rounds go through. So, um, yeah, some of it will maybe be a repeat to you depending how far you've gotten through that. And that's why I offer 50% off to anyone who's already gone through my Intuitive Academy, who's already gone through that. So you only have to pay for the part that you're actually learning is new. So it shouldn't be a loss to you either way. You could do both, that sort of a thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. And yeah, that concern of the double up, the overlay, you really addressed that. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. Yeah. Yeah. Most people know me from my intuitive work, so it's important to cover that. I think there was another question here from Eric. Can you explain what you mean by awakening? Sure. We come into this world. Do you want me to go from the beginning? It's could be a big talk. No, I'm just joking. We come into this world, and our sense of identity and our awareness, it starts to get distorted through our life experience and all the conditioning that gets brought in. Since we are cognitively aware of self, we actually create ideas of what that self is, right? You could say an animal might just be awareness. They have their biological programs running that allow them to live and survive, but they don't have suffering or these crazy autoimmune illnesses because they don't have this sense of identity distortion, because they're just living in the self. We have this opportunity to grow as a soul, but it's also, we get trapped up in all of these distortions of self, these subconscious blockages that are there. And so we're seeing life through a filter. We're not seeing and experiencing life or ourself as it really is. So awakening is the process of dissolving those distortions and coming back to the true self, being able to view all of your reality through the lens of actual awareness, actual truth, instead of a distorted lens. That's what awakening is to me. Yeah. Waking up from the dream. Yeah. Can you elaborate on experiencing increased symptoms after the initial healing? Yeah. So German New Medicine will show you that symptoms actually come in the healing phase. They come after you resolved the conflict. Because what happens is your body's adapting. If you find something in your life metaphorically indigestible to you, your body's going to it's going to create cells to help open up your digestive system to be able to process and digest the food and remove it out. Our brains work on these somewhat ancient systems, and our environment has evolved rapidly beyond what a brain could ever evolve at. I mean, look at a freaking cat. They've never evolved. They're basically perfect, right? Why would we expect that our brains could evolve to have VR headsets, 100,000 new chemicals in our environment every year, all of these various things? It can't. And so you have to think of it metaphorically. And so if your body's having to add all these cells in order to properly digest something, even if it's metaphorical, then once you're done with the situation that feels indigestible to you, like you can't process it, it has to release all of those cells. So that's when you get the diarrhea, right? And so there's sometimes symptoms that happen when you're triggered, when you're in the threat, but generally you're more asymptomatic. Generally, that's just when it's kind of dry, when you're more on high alert, when you have ruminating thoughts, when your body actually goes, oh, it's okay, I can rest now. That's when you get the symptoms. Like think of a impala being chased by a cheetah. If it gets away, it'll lay down and shake. They have to release the trauma, release whatever their body did to adapt. For that one, their lungs usually open up more so they can take in more air and escape the territory threat that's there. And we'll cover all of these terms. So that's what'll happen. So sometimes after people have a big, sometimes even when they're in session with me, they'll be like, "Ooh, I really feel this sensation," or "Ooh, I suddenly feel pretty nauseous." It'll let me know that we're touching on something important. And then as we resolve it, either through that session or the integration work that they do afterwards, sometimes they might get pretty intense symptoms that happen. But when you know that it's just your body completing a process, you don't go take the medication, you don't go to the hospital. There's a lot of things that actually interfere with the healing process, and then the person stays stuck in a loop. And so when we actually know how the body works, we don't freak out. Two of my mentors had mini heart attacks, but they're like, yeah, I'm resolving an overwhelm conflict. I knew this was going to happen. I know how to support it. We know what herbs or things are actually useful because everything has its place. Good to go. And they were fine. They're still here, right? I had what you would almost call like a schizophrenic breakdown with one of my resolutions, because it was something called a constellation, where the conflict load would be too severe to hold in my body as symptoms. So it adapted in my mind. I had auditory schizophrenia, when I was in high school and various other mental stuff going on. And when I resolved it, my heart rate was above 130 for 3 days straight, and I was feeling like I was going schizophrenic on the treadmill. And I just, kept listening to my podcast and walking on the treadmill because I was like, oh, yeah, crazy healing phase I'm going through, eh? See you in 3 days, That's the dark night of the soul. That's the transformation. And then you come out the other side reborn in this new identity, in this new self, as long as you don't interrupt it. And certain medications do interrupt it. Even seeing the symptom as a problem can interrupt it. Because, like in my example that I just gave, if you had something that was indigestible to you, is your conflict, and then you see yourself having all this diarrhea is just like a totally indigestible experience. You're like, can't handle that at all. The loop continues. You still stay stuck in it. So when you actually know what your body's doing and why, you go, oh, nice. What a good win. Yeah. This pneumonia that I'm in, that's a good healing phase. All right. See you guys in a week. It's okay, right? I had that one recently. I had a pretty intense resolution of a long withheld conflict. And so I got not pneumonia, but the one that comes before that, bronchitis. And I went through this process for resolution, and instead of it lasting 2 weeks, which normally me as somebody who's supposed to have a compromised immune system, even though there's no such thing as an immune system, it should have been a lot longer, right? Other friends that I had it for 2, 3 weeks. I was able to reduce that to 5 days. And then I actually had another reiteration of the same event. And instead of getting it again, it only happened in 2 days. I was able to continue to downgrade that as I finished resolving what was unresolved within me. And I didn't have to get on all these medications or whatever because I knew what process I was completing. Knew how to downgrade that. That's another important thing, being able to downgrade things so the symptoms aren't too intense. That we learned through the nervous system meditations and some other things that I have too. Yeah. Can you please reference the times for the Saturday and Sunday sessions of the course? Yeah, let me just do you one better here. It's all on that page. So I'll drop that in there for you. That way you can copy and paste it and do the time conversion to check that out. Yeah. There's also a checkout there for anyone else who was curious about pricing. There is a price. I'll give you a discount if you Zelle me instead, so I don't get charged the fee. And there's also payment plans through Klarna, so you can make the payment as small as you want. You know, you can do it over 24 months if you want, and just make that payment really low, or you can pay it all at once. Yeah. Anything else? These are all really good questions. This would be real fun stuff to dive really deep into. You guys are getting me excited. Hopefully, you're feeling it too. Anything else?
I don't think there's a time on your link. I think there's just I'm only seeing the date.
Oh, nice. uh, well, in that case, it is. Oh, you got kicked out anyway. I'll put it in here. It's 5. Let's go 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific time, Thursdays, and 10. Oh, it's actually 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, Saturday. And I'm happy to add a second Saturday if it becomes useful and desired, just to throw that out there as well. Yeah. And then the Sundays that becomes available to you after after you get to a certain point within the course. But that is the same time, I believe, as that Saturday one. Yeah. Sophia, is that right? Am I telling the truth? The Sunday practices, they're from 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, right? Pretty sure.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yeah, pretty sure they are from 9 to 11.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else? All right, all right. Well, thanks for being here and putting up with my slideshow and having awesome questions, awesome engagement. It's good to talk to y'all. And yeah, feel free to follow up with me if you have any other questions that come up or if you need help signing up. Last thing I will say before we close out too, if you refer somebody else who wants to take this with you, I'll either give you half off your tuition if you're going to sign up, or if you're just sending them to me and you're not going to do it, I will give you $500. That's just all yours. So if you know anyone who wants to join, there's a little bit of an incentive there. Yeah, and you could make as much money as you want if you know 10 friends. You'll be rich. So feel free to share it because the world needs this work and it's fun to have friends with us. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks for being here, and more information will come out via email and my Instagram to stoke the flame, get you excited, and get you onboarded if you want to do it. So hope to see you guys there. Have a great night.